Greetings. It's Saturday, March the 7th, in the infamous year of 2026. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, on the road, here to give you a special report on the goings-on in the Middle East and what you can do about it, which is really not a lot, but I'll go into that. Okay, a lot of you have been contacting me saying, what's going on? What's going on? And you've been probably following everything going on. People predicting the U.S. is going to be destroyed in this war. People think the U.S. is going to achieve total victory in this war. People think that there's going to be nuclear weapons flying. People think that peace is coming. I mean, everything. And there's so many experts, people that used to be in the military, people that used to be the intelligence agents, people that used to be involved in all sorts of things. Well, they're all putting their opinions out of where this is going to go. But in reality, we don't know where it's going to go. We never do. Anyone who starts a war, or anyone who a war is started over, it never goes the way you think it's going to go. Do you think the Germans believed in September of 1939 that when they rolled into Poland, that they were going to unleash the worst war in human history, if not certainly European history, and that their whole civilization would be obliterated and occupied by foreign powers? And it still is, to an extent. Do you think the Japanese, when they attacked Pearl Harbor, thought that that conflict with the giant that they woke up would end with nuclear weapons being dropped on them? People didn't even know what those were. But a handful of individuals here and there doing something will have a big effect on history. We know that. I already explained that in my Monday morning report. But what is happening now is this, and this is my assessment. But my assessment is coming from someone who is emotionally detached from this, although I do want the United States to win, merely because the alternative is too nasty to even contemplate. But here's what's going on. First off, this seems to have been planned out better than a lot of the so-called experts are saying. I think this was planned out much better. I don't think the U.S. is going to run out of munitions. I think that the American arms industry, if it's good at anything, is making stuff and making a lot of money with that stuff. I don't think they would have passed this up, and they were probably given a very good heads up on what was going to be needed. The United Arab Emirates, Azerbaijan, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, they're pretty much at war with Iran because they were attacked by Iran. Just yesterday, a couple of the few surviving members of the Iranian government, well, they said they weren't going to attack their neighbors anymore, and they proceeded to. What does that tell you? That tells you that the Americans and Israelis were very good at destroying the command structure of the Islamic Republic, which means you probably have a whole bunch of rogue military units around the country that don't have any orders, are pissed off, scared. Many reports of them deserting from the Iranian diaspora news networks, informal and formal. The monster has had its head cut off. That's a good thing, but the monster is still alive. One of the mistakes that I could see, being a armchair general like so many millions of others, is that if you kill off the government, there's no one there to surrender. There's no one there to call it off. If the Americans in World War II had killed the Japanese emperor and wiped out the government, that war would have lasted years. There's no one to surrender. There's no one to cut a deal with. The way to do it, which is how they did it with Idi Amin, who was probably one of the worst monsters to ever arise on the African continent, that says something. They cut a deal with him. He went off to Saudi Arabia and lived in the lap of luxury for the rest of his life. And it prevented a very costly military campaign to remove him from power. The greatest asset the American intelligence and military has is suitcases full of money and new identities. That's the way I would have done it, but doesn't matter. Now that the war is on, we don't want to lose. Okay, I wouldn't have done it the way Mr. Trump did it, but no one asked me, and I'm not in a position of power. Which is why I tell people, don't get into arguments with people over something you don't have any power to change. Now, if you want to get into an argument with your neighbor about your fence height or whether or not you can paint your house purple, okay, that makes sense. But if you're going to argue about whether or not the U.S. should go to war with Iran or Israel should have the influence it has in the United States, well, that you can do something about, to be fair. But once the war is started, it doesn't matter. So why go out and look for conflict? Most people look for conflict because they want to feel important. They want to feel that their opinion is worth something. Oh, Donald Trump is a terrible war criminal. He's got to do... Your opinion means nothing. It really does mean nothing. You can send a note to Congress. Oh, Congress wants to get rid of him. That would be shoveling coals to Newcastle politically if that ever happened. But no, at this point, guys, all you can do is sit and watch and hope for the best. The best will be the U.S. does get rid of this regime. And the U.S. has been at war with Iran since 1979 when they started saying death to America. All of the Islamic insanity that did not exist prior to 1979. And a lot of you aren't that old enough to remember. We didn't have this in the Middle East. We had Arab nationalism, where you had all the Arabs wanting to get rid of Israel too, but they weren't influenced by religion anywhere near as bad as it went. 9/11 wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Jimmy Carter abandoning the Shah of Iran. Cursed be his name, Jimmy Carter. Okay? Just remember all of the craziness, all the Americans who've been killed in Islamic-related terrorism, all of the mayhem, all of the changes to our society that we didn't want and still don't like, all of that came from this country and the people that took it over. A great deal of Iranians aren't even Muslim. They're Zoroastrians, by the way, which is rather interesting. Most people don't know that. No, this country has had to go for a long time. But like most things in American politics, the can was kicked down the road, to use another American idiom that foreigners have a hard time understanding. The can was kicked down the road, so someone else was going to deal with it. Now it's time to deal with it. Again, doesn't matter if you agree or disagree. You do not want the United States to lose this one. If we lose this one, we are really, really, really done. Okay? I have to admit, I'm not the type who'd put all the chips on the table like the Trump administration has done and like Israel has done, because they're going to lose big if they lose this one too. No, I have a feeling that if I have to predict it, there will be a victory of some sort. But I've known enough Iranians over the years, beautiful people, after the abandonment of their country by Jimmy Carter, cursed be his name, they came here and they fit into our country very well, became very productive citizens, very educated, very dignified, very friendly people. And the ones I've been in touch with, they're happy. Some have cried and talking to me on the phone, saying, I could go home to see where my grandmother's buried, that sort of thing. No, when your country goes to war, you don't want to subvert it. You want to see it succeed. You can argue about it later, but you do not want to lose. We don't want to lose this one. But remember, don't lose family members over any more arguments over things you have no control over. How many families were disrupted? How many divorces happened because someone didn't like Donald Trump or MAGA, Japanese comic books, maybe a Freudian slip there. All of that was wasteful. At one point in this country, we could have disagreements in the kitchen table and they would stay there. But don't get upset or emotionally attached to something you do not have any control over. When you see you could do something about it, do it. In the meantime, you're going to have to do what most humans have learned throughout history. If you're powerless, all you can do is sit and watch and wait and hope, and in some cases, pray. No matter what happens, the Middle East and the world itself is going to go through a geopolitical change like it hasn't seen probably since World War II. But again, anything can happen in war. That's why war is to be avoided. And that's it for today. I'm going to be doing a bit of traveling. You'll get some audio reports from me. You won't be getting video for a while for a few reasons. But I'm going to be taking care of some business and finishing up on some writing projects. But I'll be in touch. This is a time where it's needed. Anyways, I want to thank everybody who's been following me for the last few years. I'm going to continue doing this, and hopefully we'll be doing it more. But those of you who've been supportive, especially financially, when I say consider a paid subscription, I'm really saying, please subscribe. You've been very kind and very nice, and I want to thank you all for that, really, from the bottom of my heart. When I have people from around the world who listen to me and value my angle on things and send a note, that means a lot. This is not the biggest audience I've had. I had 35 million people a day listening to me back when I worked for United Press International. But those of you who do listen and those of you who do watch and who send me a note every so often, thank you. That's it for today. If you appreciate my work, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends and share with your enemies, and hope that when the fighting's over, you can become friends. I can be reached at feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback@aureliancolumn.com. I'm up on X. My handle there is MICCAMPEN, MICCAMPEN. I am up on other social media platforms, but not Facebook. This podcast originates at Substack. My handle there is aureliancolumn.substack.com. Until we meet again, be good, be safe, be vigilant, and remember, Clown World, the deep state, and all crazy religious fanaticism of any denomination that causes so much pain on our planet must be destroyed. Good day.